Just fucking do it. Subscribe now.
Have him go to the bank before he sells, set up a line of credit for 100 grand, draw it down, keep the cash in the company, and then he pays 100 grand more for the business. And then you use that 100 grand either to pay business brokers, accountants, lawyers. It's been around since Moses, maybe before Moses. When I came to Scotland, they had not done a £1 billion deal yet. Impossible. You know, Biloxi, Mississippi had done a £1 billion deal, but not in Scotland. Somebody's hands up. Yes, sir.
Can you legally do the same with accountants and lawyers? Give them a bonus for bringing you deals?
You don't give them that's not acceptable in GAAP, the general accepted accounting principles, but you can pay premium 20% over the rate, 40% over the rate. Yes. Disclosed. And finance it. Some of the guys use 2 or 3 accounting firms at the same time to keep them honest amongst each other. Some use a couple law firms at the same time. And some you'll find law firms are better at $0 to $50 million deals, and they don't have the bench or the backup lawyers to do bigger deals faster. You want them fast. Almost all the firms can do them, but if you've got 300 lawyers as opposed to 3 lawyers, they can't get the job done quick enough. Because you want them to be spitting these deals out like rabbit pellets, poop pellets out of a rabbit. And you should. The system, the QLA system was originally set up for 1 deal a month without an M&A staff, without just, the regular. And now the guys are doing 1 deal a week. And some are doing 2 deals a week. But they have M&A guys. They've got they got a team of 3. They have 1 senior and a couple of juniors, and they just crank on it, and they get paid some sort of base salary, and they get paid 7% or 3% or whatever you can negotiate with them, and or some of the equity of the deal. And in Money Talks and Bullshit Walks, remember, somebody said, I forget, they said, well, I love my employees. I want you to love my employees and all that. That's all horseshit. They'll sell their employees down in a fucking river like a guy from Turkey would do to an Egyptian. I mean, that's all horseshit. Money Talks and Bullshit Walks. Well, he's been here 31 years. I remember a guy, I try to stay away from restaurants. But anyway, one of you was doing restaurants, and it was back in the 90s. And the guy had been there 41 years. He had started the chain with the guy's father, and he was going to get 6% equity, and they were going to increase his bonus 110 grand a year. And when he found out where the 110 grand was coming out of his pocket, we love him, but we don't love him that much. Because ultimately, if it's not over finance, it's coming out of your pocket. But right now, you got 0 or close to 0. And with the team, as the brothers said, they've tripled, now quadrupled their business in the last 5 years. And they didn't have a small business to begin with. And so they see the benefit of paying up expensive lawyers. I don't know if they're taking them to Applebee's, but I mean, for me, I mean, they took us to the best places, which I'm thankful for. And money talks, guys. And and when you ask them for the Super Bowl tickets, you're serious. You're serious.
All right. With the
accountant firms. When you buy a company, you also need like general accountants to manage the company, and most of the time the bookkeeping of the seller's company is shit. So you need to put in like good accountants. Do you want your M&A team and the normal accounts to be on the same firm?
No, they're different. They're different people.
Yeah, I thought so. Because you want to fire them any minute, right?
Well, not just that, but there's, there's intercontinental truth and your truth. I mean, your M&A team is the closest to you.
There are different teams within like PwC or EY or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Well, right now, Jason's KPMG does his corporate finance. They sit down quarterly and decide. KPMG does the homework. These are the 13 companies that fit your pistol. And when the introduction letter comes from KPMG or the introduction letter comes from PwC, they know you're serious. Whereas with email, sending letters, knocking on doors like Leanne mentioned earlier today. But when the letter comes from KPMG Edinburgh, they take it serious. Or if it comes from, PwC Manchester, wherever you are, they take you serious. As they should, because you're given a level of credibility, like Tony said, that everybody else doesn't have. PwC, KPMG, or when a bank sends a letter, they're putting their reputation on the line. When a bank sends a letter, or KPMG, the deal is financed, don't worry about it. Just the opposite of where you are now. The bank is financed. I carried a letter around for years and years and years and years. It fell apart. I put plastic around it, and it was a letter from O'Melveny and Myers. And at the time, Warren Christopher was Secretary of the State, and he was a managing partner of O'Melveny and Myers. And it said, words to the effect, the bearer of this, and they tried to get it back from me after 4 or 5 years. The bearer of this letter, we have never seen the bearer of this letter not be able to complete a transaction due to finance. It was platinum gold. I used it until it fell apart. But it was true. I completed every goddamn deal. But you can't get blanket letters like that anymore. But this is in the good old days. When men were men and gals were gals. Somebody else in the back, sir.
So I'm getting 60%. I'm dealing with one credit officer. I'm dealing with another credit officer for the working capital and also another one for the line of capital.
That sounds like you heard that on my YouTube.
I'm asking you.
I'm no. Oh, I thought you were doing it. Is that what you're doing now?
Well, I'm confirming with you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You got it right.
Before closing? At closing?
Well, no, you're going to have a working capital. Most banks are going to try to slap in your working capital with the loan for the deal. You don't want that. Because they're figuring out how much working capital you need. I don't want them figuring out. I want you figuring out how much working capital you need. And depending on the business you're in, between 90 and 180 days of the money that it takes to run the business. That's how much working capital you need. Now, in NetScum, arguably, you don't need any fucking working capital. But that's not what you want to hear from the bank. So if it's 3 different guys or gals or whatever, same bank. Now, that's an interesting point. If they give you a hard time, which I'm sure you guys are all slicker than baby shit, well, fine, I'll get the working capital loan from another bank. They will go into motherfucking Panicville. You don't like me anymore? I'm going to, I guess we're going to have a open marriage, I guess. Did I say that right? Yeah. You don't want to fuck me anymore? I guess we have an open marriage now. I'll get fucked by somebody. They will not allow that to happen, meaning you'll get your way. But guys, I want to step on that. Guys, you got to stick to your fucking guns. As soon as they tell you no, sweet pea, you don't start crying and yet, fine, we'll get another bank. And that's why you got, to the extent that you're doing commercial finance, that's why you're talking to 5, 6, 8, 10 banks. So you can go to another bank. Don't bluff them. Now, I've bluffed them before, okay? But don't bluff that you've got other banks and then you don't. Then you're holding your putts out here. You're not even jerking it around. But you got to hold your nerve. Keep your nerve. And sometimes it backfires on you. But the more you do it, and the more used to you, familiar you are with it, the tougher you sound. Now, for those of you that have been in relationships and marriage and that kind of shit, when you argue with your significant other, right? Sometimes you say some awful things. Quite often you say some awful things. That's how you treat the banks. Well, I mean, I happen to know your significant other, if he's still around, Blondie. And he's a cocky, smart shit little guy who's got a big fucking mouth. If he's the same guy, I remember being here. You've said things, I wouldn't have your kid if you were the last man on earth. I remember somebody here at the seminar, the girl told her husband. Now that's pretty harsh. I would not have your child if you were the last man on earth. But he was a cunt. This guy was a cunt. Oh, honey, But I mean, harsh. You got to be hard, and you got to mean it. And then you heard Simon Bell say, and yet I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent the next week. Now I've been there. I've had my houses foreclosed 3 times. And I always was able to cure it in the end. But fuck, I told our daughter one time, we lived rent-free for 11 months back in the day. She said, how's that possible, Daddy? Well, because we didn't make the payments, honey. It's funny to laugh about it. At the time, it was no fucking laughing matter. And I'd fly back into town and expecting the sheriffs, they're collecting the fucking furniture, Fortunately, we bought and on one loan in the very beginning, when I signed my name a couple of times, we used the furniture and the paintings as collateral. We don't do that anymore, but this was 35 years ago. So, worst case scenario, I see them taking all the shit out of the house.
So would you say if you're unsure what to say or what to do?
No, we're never unsure. We may be wrong, but we're never unsure.
But if you're in a situation, is it better to always err on the side of just being an asshole?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I'm figuring out.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to teach you like if you were raised in the hood, and somebody said that your girlfriend's ass looked like pigs in a gunny sack. Now, to this day, I had lunch with my cousin. Why don't you just hit him with a brick or something? I mean, because knives were the way of the barrio back in the day. Now it's guns. Anything else? These are what your goals should be. Bold, unrealistic, audacious, over the top, unconventional, can't accomplish in your lifetime. When I made the $1 trillion goal and 1 million millionaires, I swear to you, I thought 7 years, if I'm asleep, 10 years to accomplish it. 24 fucking years. Because I grossly underestimated the lack of self-esteem and grit and all those things that the kids had. God almighty, did I. If I had known it was going to be that hard, I would have never set that goal. I would have been in and out of coaching in 36 months. And, the rest is history. And I would have done this for myself. A few years ago, in fact, right after we hit $1 trillion in 2017, I considered stop coaching. I hit my goal. Nobody's ever going to pass it. And I'm going to go out and make a few billion. And as Sally said, she says, nobody will be surprised that you did it, Dad. Everybody's surprised if you do it. And so she was telling me the right thing. And so I continued. And of course, we're now at 2.3 trillion. Anything else? Who? Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, you don't put on your request $900,000 loan, $200,000 working capital, and $150,000 line of credit all on the same fucking piece of paper. That's not how you do it. And if they are so indifferent towards you that they lump, and these are the words that I use, you're so indifferent that you lump my working capital in with my majority loan. How the fuck do you know how I run my business? Who gave you permission to piss on my parade? Now, see, you're not going to use those kind of words, but something that approaches those kind of words, that you're fucking insulted. And the banks are weaker than they've ever been. What are you, another Silicon Valley bank? I better check my deposits. Only 4 banks have gone under. And they will, whether they hate you, they're not going to love you. They'll give you what you need, legally, transparent as hell, no bribes, no backhand shit, nothing. And I told you, even when I had money, I used to go around with Jimmy with a scar. When they'd open a new branch or Bank of America, there's 3 things you know. Or Barclays, or ING. There's 3 things you know. 1, they've done tons and tons and tons of market research that they need a bank there. Okay? Number 2, they have no fucking customers. None. Not one. And 3, it's full of gobs of fucking money. I used to go up to the bank, and I wait 5 to 9 whenever they open. And Jimmy'd wake me up. I'd be in the back, or my driver in Amsterdam back in the day. And I'd go in and I'd say, I want to open a personal account and a business account. There was another account. I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, what's your personal lending limit? The manager. And 50,000 euros is kind of, and I said, well, fine, I'll apply for 50,000. And I'd come with my financials, or the financials I was willing to show them. You don't need any loan. Let's just pretend I do need a loan. Don't you want me as a credit? Don't you want to be able to say who I am? Yes. And they said, well, we'll come back tomorrow. No. Now. I'll sit and have a coffee. Don't you have any fucking coffee here? Cookies or shit? And I sit there, taking a snooze. A couple hours later, I'd leave with the equivalent of a cashier's check. 50 grand. I did that back in the day, and a guy named Mark Stasinas was the manager. This was in Hollywood. And I've known Mark since he's a Greek kid, since he's a little boy. And he said, God, you're going to be my first customer, Mr. P. I said, yeah, what's your lending limit? 50 grand. I said, Jesus Christ, you've been a banker 16 years, and that's all you can fucking lend? You little shit. I didn't have to fight with him, and so they sent out breakfast for me, and I sat there, and we left. The stuff works. Okay, EJ,